Hey, what's going on, guys? It's FPL Yusuf here, and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. Yes, we are back. We are back with the first video of the 25-26 season. It is that time of year. We are getting very close to the start of FPL reopening. We've had players' prices drop last night. We've had some new additions added to the game as well. Also, something coming out of the game. So we've got a lot to talk about. I will be doing two separate videos on this. So we're going to start off with this video solely as just all-around changes, and there is a lot to discuss in this. So if you guys are excited to be back, please don't forget to drop a thumbs up on this video and subscribe down below. But without further ado, for the first time this season, let's get right into it. Okay, welcome back, guys. Thank you so much for being here with me today on my YouTube channel for another video. Before we get into this one, if you guys wouldn't mind dropping a thumbs up and subscribing down below, that'd be greatly appreciated. So it is that time. We are back. We are nearing the return of FPL. We have been getting little snippets of information. We've had our first round of player prices drop last night as well. So usually that means that within the next few days, we should be having the FPL website going live, which means we can all jump back on, get to making our team, get to making our squad, and a whole lot more. So in this video alone, I'm going to talk about just some of the changes that have been made to FPL, as there are a few. Now, I wasn't planning to make a video like this, but over the last sort of few days, more and more has come out where, you know, we've got a few new additions coming in. We've had, obviously, the assistant manager has been taken away, which we'll cover in this video. We've had new player positions. So there's a few little bits that I kind of want to go over. I'll be back later on with another video, just going over the first round of price drops that we had last night. At the time of me recording this, it is currently Monday morning. So let's just jump straight into some of the changes, and we're going to start off with something new that they've added. And this is something which me personally, I've been waiting for a long time. I know a lot of people have sort of been feeling the same way about it, and that is defensive contributions. So this year in FPL, we're going to be seeing contributions for defensive players, for tackles, for blocks, for clearances, and interceptions as well. Now, for me personally, I know this has been in other fancies before. If you play, you know, the Euro fantasy in particular is the one that I kind of really know it from, where for every, you know, 3 tackles or 3 interceptions that player makes, they get an extra point. FPL have done it a little bit differently this year. The way Fantasy Premier League have done it this year is that any player who gets a combined total of 10 blocks, interceptions, tackles, and clearances will get an extra 2 bonus points. Now, that is for all of them combined. You know, if you make 5 tackles and 5 clearances, that obviously hits the threshold of 10. That will get you an extra 2 points. Now, they haven't said that for every 5 you get 1, so I'm assuming it is just going to be, you know, you have to accumulate 10 of those, you know, tackles, interceptions, blocks, clearances, and then you will get the extra 2 points. Now, it is capped at 2. That is worth me saying. It's not like, you know, I mean, not that anyone, I find it very hard to see a player getting sort of 20 combined, but, and, you know, that would eventually, should on paper give you 4, but it doesn't. So this new feature that they brought in is capped at only 2 FPL points at a maximum. Now, like I said, this is something that I personally have been waiting for a long time, because there are certain players in FPL, you know, if we go back to N'Golo Kante a few years ago, who this would have been insane for. I don't think it's going to be groundbreaking. I don't think it's going to have such an impact that, you know, all of us are going to just start stacking up on centre backs and, you know, defensive midfielders. I'll put a little picture on screen now of what FPL released, of just showing of what the accumulation of this, you know, new edition would have done last year. As you can see, there are only 3 players on it who have got above 40 points. That's James Tarkowski, Jan Bednarak, and Moises Caicedo. But I'm just looking at players more like Declan Rice, more like Rodri. You know, obviously Rodri was out for a lot of last season, who does score goals. You know, he does pop up with a couple of goals, a couple of assists. Same with Declan Rice, who does, you know, take corners for Arsenal, does get his goals here and there. It's these kind of little extra points here and there that could change these assets from players who we don't really think about going to actually becoming a viable option. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be groundbreaking. I don't think it's going to be anything that's going to sort of disrupt the flow of FPL. But I do think it gives us a bigger pool of players to choose from. You know, for example, James Tarkowski and Mykolenko was a battle last year that, you know, when we did jump on Everton assets, everyone kind of always sided towards Mykolenko. We always knew that Tarkowski had the threat from corners and set pieces, but Mykolenko probably had a little bit more of an upside from open play. However, now with these additions, and as we've seen, Tarkowski himself would have been number 1 in terms of points affected by this. Maybe that just swings those 50-50s to maybe a 70-30 and 80-20 now. I think the big thing will be depending on how much, you know, the price changes and price points will affect this. You know, will FPL increase prices of like defensive midfielders, you know, like Rodri, Caicedo, Declan Rice, these type of players? You know, the centre backs as well, because as you can see on the list for defenders, it is pretty much all centre backs. You know, I just scanned through it. I couldn't actually see any fullbacks on there. So, you know, the likes of Max Kilman's on there, Tarkowski, as we said, Bednarak, Dean Huijsen. So these are all players who maybe, you know, for the teams that they were playing for last year, their counterparts would have had fullbacks that you'd probably want to go towards instead. But maybe now with this new addition, it actually makes us think about that 50-50 choice is maybe a little bit more in favour of the centre-backs and the defensive midfielders because of the new addition to this. So it's something that I welcome with open arms. It's something that I've been waiting for a long time. I think it's good that they've started it like this because obviously, you know, they haven't gone into a stage where it's too overpowered, it's going to be too strong from the start. So it'd be interesting just to see how we sort of start ticking away with things. And, you know, if adjustments need to be made throughout the year, it can do, but it's better just to start off with sort of like a low point than starting with high and having to drop. Okay, so on to the second change now. This one I think is going to have a lot more impact on how we play FPL this season. So we're getting double chips for everything. So usually we always get 2 wildcards, or at least over the last few years, we've always managed to get second wildcards. So we get one for the first half and one for the second half. But I think the big thing has always been about chip strategy, right? And there's always been, when do we play our chips? You know, the bench boost, triple captain, the free hits. There's like all these little things there. It was always sort of saved more often than not towards the back end of the season, because that's when you'd have doubles. You know, you'd have players who sort of coming in and out and who are in better form. But now they've increased that and they're giving us one of each. So we get 2 essentially throughout the season. So we'll get one from between game weeks 1 and 19. You'll be able to play one of each. And then same thing for the second half of the season, between 20 and 38, you'll be able to play one of each. So I think this really does open up a different dynamic for FPL this year. You know, it'll be, especially in terms of, you know, how we strategize. So usually when it comes to sort of like bench boosts, what usually happens is the current template is that we'd wildcard and then go straight into a bench boost after. But now this gives you a different option, you know, because you've got one for the first half of the season. Could you theoretically bench boost game week 1, knowing that you've got all the way up until, you know, the deadline of the first game week to sort of pick and choose your team? You know, you can spread the money around and then just go into a wild card for game week 2 and then just basically use that bench boost as 3 points essentially in that first game week. So I think this one here in particular is something which opens the door for different strategies, but also if you do, you know, if you do mess up on a chip, you know, if you play a bad bench boost or you play a bad free hit, a bad triple captain, it's almost like you've got a second chance to put that right. And I think for a lot of people, especially with the triple captain, I think if that usually flops and, you know, it doesn't go as well as what is maybe planned. And the thing is, there's no guarantee on chips. You know, I think that's the one thing people will need to remember, is that you never guaranteed to get points. You know, last season, I think a lot of us put Haaland triple captain against, I can't remember who it was, but his XG that he accumulated was ridiculous. It was like 2.33 and he only got a goal, which was 6 points. I think it was against Southampton. And it's like on a game like that, he should be coming away on a triple captain. You should be pushing towards the sort of 50, 60 points from him. And we only got 18. So I think, you know, you can kind of give yourself the best opportunity possible. But at the end of the day, chips in particular, a lot of it is down to luck. Obviously, you know, you can pick the right player on the right day, which is fantastic. But, you know, sometimes it just does come down to pot luck on whether or not you hit it or miss. But the good thing about having double chips is, even if you do miss and it doesn't work out for you, you have got another opportunity in the second half of the season, the same as you would with a wild card. I think for me personally, this is something that I'm really looking forward to. It's something that I've been wanting to have over the last few years. Obviously, you don't want to make it too powerful to the point that, you know, we've got all these chips going around. Because I think one of the things that has always made FPL so, you know, successful is just the simplicity of the game. You know, it's very easy to understand, it's very easy to pick up, and I think that was a big problem with, I think, well, at least part of the problem with the assistant manager chip. So we'll quickly touch on that. Obviously, that's coming out now. I think a lot of people probably, you know, are probably on board with this. You know, me personally, I know I'm happy that it's gone. I think it was just too overpowered. I think, you know, it was too strong of a chip. And I didn't like the fact that you had to pay for the manager. I didn't like the fact that if your manager got sent off, you could still accumulate points, because it was more about the team that you're picking, not so much the manager. I think there was a few different things that were wrong with it in general. Obviously, you know, it was a trial little period. It was only from January onwards, so we only had it for a couple of months. But I do think that for me personally, it's a glad addition. It was something that they tried, you know, and I think we all wanted innovation. We all wanted something new, because obviously, you know, when you keep the same game for multiple years, it does get boring, and, you know, it does get quite tedious. So you do need something to spice it up. You know, they tried something with the assistant manager chip. I just don't think that in particular worked. However, this with the double chips, I definitely think could work, and it's something which I am personally looking forward to so much. Okay, and the last thing I just want to quickly cover in this video is position changes. Now, there are a few more. I'm going to put them all on screen now, but I'm just going to cover the ones that probably will affect us, you know, from players that we picked last season, but also players that we could pick this season. So we'll start off in defence, and with Arsenal, that's Miles Lewis-Skelly. So obviously last year he was a midfielder, and, you know, he, especially for sort of 3/4 of the season, he was Arsenal's starting left back. Now, Arsenal are notorious for keeping a lot of clean sheets, and obviously when you've got Miles Lewis-Skelly there, who is probably going to be, you know, well, last season he was very cheap, but this season I don't know where he's priced at. I've had to predict, he'd probably say 5 million, but a 5 million Arsenal starting defender is something which is very valuable, especially if, you know, you can't get to the Salibas and the Gabriels of the world. I think having a defender in there who's going to play most games is very valuable. Obviously, Yuri and Timber probably, I would say, was going to be about 5.5-ish. So hopefully with Miles Lewis-Skelly, you'll be able to save that 0.5, get the clean sheets. But he also does have a little bit of attacking threat as well. You know, we saw he obviously got his goal against Man City last year, got a couple of assists as well. So yeah, that's the first change up on this list. We go on to 3 players who were forwards last season but have now become midfielders. That is Matheus Cunha, Marmoush, and Cody Gakpo. So these are 3 which I think a lot of people are going to welcome. So we'll start off with Marmoush first. Obviously, when he came in last season, he did have a few games where he did hit the heights. I think just moving forward to a midfielder, especially someone who actually plays, you know, Gakpo, Cunha as well, probably both going to be starters for the majority of the season for their respective clubs. I think, you know, it's +1 for a goal, it's +1 for you know, a clean sheet as well. So you're just opening up the possibility to, you know, more points for certain players. Now, I think obviously price point is always going to be the key for these type of players, because, you know, Cunha last season had penalties. Is he going to have penalties at Man United? Most probably not, just because the fact that, you know, Bruno Fernandes is there. Marmoush obviously has never had penalties, but, you know, was playing very advanced and far forward. So if he carries on like that as a midfielder and he does get regular minutes, almost like Julian Alvarez did when he was at Manchester City, I think that's someone who definitely could be, you know, depending on price, a very good asset to pick up. Obviously, Gakpo, you know, for a lot of the season was starting out on the left-hand side. There's a lot of talk about Luis Diaz potentially leaving, which I think if he does, that would be beneficial for, you know, Cody Gakpo in particular as a midfielder. Did have a quite good season on his debut season last year as well. So it's I think price point is going to be the key around these players to see whether or not they're worth it or not. But I think just the idea that it's an extra point for a goal, it's an extra point for a clean sheet, I think is always a nice thing. And now a very sad one, which I personally am very upset with, and that is Jarrod Bowen moving from midfield to a forward. And I think this just completely kills Jarrod Bowen as an asset, to be honest with you, because whatever he comes in at his price point, as a forward, there's always going to be Haaland, who's going to be an option. If Arsenal sign Victor Gyökeres as a striker, he's going to be an option. You know, Chelsea, if they end up getting a striker, you know, they obviously got João Pedro now, Liam Delap, they're going to be options. Liverpool, if they get Ekitike comes in, Isak's obviously there, Watkins is still there. So I just think Jarrod Bowen is unfortunately just going to get drowned out of that pool of players there. Price point could be a big thing for him. If he comes in at 7.5, maybe there's a possibility. But I just think the midfield role for him at West Ham which is what, you know, especially midfielders as well, because if you couldn't reach a Palmer, a Saka, him and Mbeumo were the 2 like really nice picks that were affordable for everyone. And you know, if West Ham are scoring, 9 times out of 10, he's going to be having a hand in the goal, whether it's scoring it himself or getting an assist. I think moving him to a forward, you know, he loses a point for every goal he scores. He loses the ability to keep a clean sheet. Not that West Ham were, you know, overly abundant in clean sheets, but it was always just a nice added incentive and bonus. So yeah, this one I'm a little bit disappointed with. We'll have to wait and see how it goes, but I just think that this may actually kill Jarrod Bowen as an asset. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you have enjoyed it, please don't forget to drop a thumbs up and subscribe down below. We are back. This is my first video. Apologies if there's any mistakes. You know, I'm just sort of trying to get back into the swing of things with recording. Obviously, we haven't uploaded a video for nearing 2 months now, so it's been a bit of a while, but we are back now. Obviously, FPL hopefully this week, maybe even the next couple of days, should be up and live. And when it does come, obviously we will be here with my first draft. I will be covering, you know, different types of drafts this summer, obviously, because like I said, with the double chips now, bench boosting from game week 1 is a distinct possibility and something which I personally am going to be looking at. So I will be bringing you drafts over the course of the summer. I'm going to have a video hopefully tomorrow of the first lot of prices that we got last night about you know, Isak, Verts, Pickford, and Ait-Nouri. So there will be a video coming for that. So stay tuned on that. But we are back, guys. Hopefully not too long now till that site goes up live. If you have enjoyed this video, please don't forget to drop a thumbs up and subscribe down below. And I will catch you guys next time.